Hello, guys, and welcome to day 5 of PAP's beginner course. I'm so excited that we have come this far and we have come to day 5. Yesterday, we did amazing things like pop-ups. We looked at variables. We looked at global variable, local variable. We built a SharePoint list again. We built an app and we did pop-up. It was amazing. And top of my head, I'm thinking, what are we going to be doing today? Of course, our trainer is here and ready to take us in today's training. Hi, David. How you doing? How is your side? And how is the rain? Because I know that it rained in Lagos. And how is the side?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yes, my side is very good. Of course, it's a bit cold. The rain has been pouring since morning, but we are so excited. So I'm glad that we're here. So yeah, today we are going to be looking at a lot of things. We are going to be looking at formulas, more in depth into formulas and conditions. So yeah, I'm excited to be here to take you guys on this journey. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, David. So, as our culture is, guys, tell us where you're joining us from and tell us what you are hoping, your expectation for today's training. What are you hoping to learn? What are you hoping that we show you today? Tell us, and I'll be here checking all of you. Yeah, so I see some students that have been joining from day 1 to day this is day 5. So if you received the mail that we sent you yesterday, you see that in the mail we put there that you guys are now Agba developers, because if you're doing pop-up in day 5 already, of course you're ready to be employed by any organization, ready to go there as a junior developer. So thank you so much. I'm going to leave here and allow David show us magic in Pavs. Take it up, David.
Okay, thank you, Mona. All right, so yeah, I'm going to present my screen a little bit. So today, as I said, you are going to do formulas and conditions, right? All right, so now we're just going to go through it a little bit. I'm just going to talk a bit of theory, and then we'll go straight into the studio. Okay, all right. Now I have mentioned previously before that perhaps is basically like one side Excel, one side PowerPoint. So we've seen a lot of PowerPoints like things in the sense that using controls, putting it on your kitchen area, right, on the canvas, uh, you know, making doing configurations in the properties, either in the left side, on the right side of the pane, and or the properties pane. So you've seen all of those things. Now today we're going to focus more on the Excel side of things, right? We're going to say, okay, how do we write a formula to do something for us, to do some dynamic changes in our apps? We've done a little bit of that already. We've shown you a little bit of that, but the focus was more on showing you guys how to do some basic stuff with forms and galleries. But now I want to dive deep into formulas. Like, we're going to go deep into formulas. We're going to see different types of formulas, different examples of formulas, how you can, think about, right, doing stuff in formulas. Now, I know Power Apps is actually low code, which means that there's a bit of code that you need to write, a bit of formula that you need to write. If you're already good at writing formulas in Excel, then you already have a good start already, to be honest. But if you don't have that experience, no problem. We're going to go through it step by step. All right. So formulas and conditions. All right. So we're going to look at a couple of things today. So formulas, conditions, and and the more complex formulas. So basically, just examples and examples of these expressions. So just to get used to it. All right. So this. Okay. So now, so introduction. So now I've talked about Power FX. So the first day we did the presentation on Power Platform, and there was a little icon near Power Apps that is for Power FX. So Power FX is the formula language for Power Apps, and in fact, this is for Power Apps and for Logic Apps and other Power Platform uh, products. But right now, I focus on Power Apps. So Power FX is the formula language developed by Microsoft for creating calculations and expressions within Power Apps and Power Automate platforms, right? So it is designed to be simple, readable, and expressive, allowing users to manipulate and transform data easily, right? Power is primarily used to create formulas in Canvas apps, also used to create some things in model-driven apps, and also in Power Automate. So now I'm going to look at more practical examples of this. All right. So let's go back to our studio. Okay. So now we're in our studio. I will try to zoom in a bit, so just to allow us to see what is going on. Okay, I can stop. Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. So, what are expressions in Power Apps? Right. So to be honest, expressions is anything that you can write in this FX formula. To be honest, can be anything, right? It can be a reference to a variable. It can be using a variable with a formula or a function rather, right? So the function can be is part of the formula. It can just be reference to a variable. It can be using the operators to do all kinds of things like arithmetic operations, logical operations, and things like that. We've talked about data types already previously. We talked about some of the operators that are related to certain data types, right? So any of those things you write is a formula, right? Anything that you're doing that you can write basically in this FX formula bar, it's a formula. All right. Okay, so we're going to look at an example, right? Okay. So let's say we want to create let's say a rectangle, right? Just bear with me for now, right? So now there's actually a control for rectangle, interestingly enough, right? So let's look for that. All right. So I'm going to add that to the screen. Okay, good. Now I will play around with this a little bit just to show you what all we can do with Power Effects. Now, let's assume your requirement for this rectangle is that it must be half the height must be half the width, right? So you want to do a 2 by 1 rectangle. That's the requirement. You must have the width. Now, to be honest, you can just simply go into the width and make that happen, right? You can just simply type. Let's say we have 300, right? So 300 width. So it's going to be as wide as 300, and then you can just come in here and say the height is 150. Right. Okay. Now, at this point, we've met our requirements. Let me see. They didn't accept that. Just 1 minute. Let me try again. See. Okay. All right. Now, so at this point, we've met our requirement, right? We have a 2 by 1 rectangle. But the truth is that if I come in here and I adjust my width again later and I say, okay, I actually want the width to be 400. Now I have to go and adjust my height again, right? But if I but based on my requirement, it has to be a 2 by 1 rectangle, right? So what if I can take advantage of that knowledge? The advantage of the fact that it's always 2 by 1, isn't it? What I can do is this. Now I know my width is 400, right? So if I come to my height, now I can put the number just like the way I put the number, but you could write an expression to represent that requirement, right? Okay, so let me give you an example. So let's say, for instance, we know, all right, again, part of uh, a formula might be reference to controls. We did that when we did the hide and show of the data card for the device type, I think 2 classes ago, where we did data card value 6 dot selected dot value, right, equals to work device. We did that previously. So we reference another control and we used a property or a value of a property in that control to make a decision. So we've done that kind of expression before. So I'm going to do that kind of thing now. All right. So now to reference this rectangle, what can we do? We need to reference the name of the rectangle. Note that at the left, the name of the rectangle is rectangle 1. So all we need to do is to write rectangle 1. Okay, okay. Sorry, not exactly this. Okay, all right. So rectangle 1. So first of all, we've referenced. Sorry, jump here today. Okay, okay. Let me stop here. All right. So we've referenced the rectangle, right? So let's now there's an error, but don't worry about the error for now. So first step, you reference the control, right? So that's step 1. Step 2, what property of that control are you interested in? Remember, this is the height, and our requirement is that half of the width, right? So the width is twice the size of the height. So I said, okay, why don't we take advantage of that? So now you can reference the width of that rectangle from this place, right? And how do you reference the property of the control? You press dot. When you press dot, that's how you get the options of the properties of that control. Right. Okay. So now, what we want to reference is the width, right? So we can either scroll down, right, to find that property, or we can type it fully. So now we found it already. We can tap on it, right? Now that is fine. Now at this point, we've actually created a square. So again, this is interesting, isn't it? Create a square because the square is all sides must be equal. But we want to create a rectangle and it's 2 by 1, right? So all we need to do is divide that value because now we are referencing the width. If you look at the value there, you can see it's 400, which was the current value of the height of the width of this rectangle. So, but we want to do half of that. So now all we need to do is divide it by 2. So we want to divide it by 2 to become half of that width of that rectangle. Okay, now now that we have that, so the advantage of this is this. If I come in here now, I say, okay, now actually I want my width to be 350. I just want it to be 350 because of whatever reason. Because people change their mind, isn't it? So now I make the width to be 350. What will happen? I still have my 2 by 1 because my height is now 175, right? Now 175, so that's half of 350. So that is the power of those of the power effects formula, right? You can do some dynamic uh, calculations based on the property of the control. Now, in this case, we did the control that we're referencing was the same control, right? We're referencing the rectangle's height. We're referencing the rectangle to this from the same rectangle's height, right? Okay, so that's possible. But you can also reference another control too, right? So now another thing to take note is that once you write a formula, right, in a property, you will not be able to directly edit it from the properties pane anymore. So if you look at this, when I put my mouse, I don't know how sharp this is. It has a kind of overlay with effects on it, telling me that indicating that there's a formula that's been written in that place. So I can't just go there and write 150 anymore. Instead, I have to so what one trick you can use is to click on the label of that particular property, and then it will immediately become what is on the formula bar. Right. So this is the only place I can go and edit it, and it's my proper formula. I have to make changes from here. So for instance, I could come back and say, okay, fine, I actually want it to be divided by 4. And that would also work. Try to divide by 4, and I get it. Okay. All right. So, all right. So now that is it. Now let's assume again. This is the benefit of this. Let's assume what to do is square. All right, you don't even divide by 4, just make it the same thing, right? This is just an example. Make it the same thing. The good thing about it is that if we drag the width now, because the height is being calculated from the width, we drag the width. What happens? Let's drag. Okay, just a minute. Let's drag the width of this. Right? So what happens? It automatically the height automatically calculates, right? So that is one of the powerful things about our apps, right? Is the sense that you can track the changes in property of the changes in value of another property from another property. So the height is tracking the width of the rectangle. So as I'm increasing the width, right, or I'm reducing the width, the height is also adjusted, right? Normally it's supposed to be faster than this. My system is a bit slow today, but that's the other. So normally it's like it's immediate, but that's fine. So as I'm adjusting my width, the height is why because the height is dependent on the width, right? So and you can see that the numbers are the same 494 and 494. I can do it as I like. I can just keep reducing it to readjust, to fit. Okay, that's a very simple example of this. Now, let us go to another level. Right? Okay, so let's say, for instance, uh, let me put this there. All right. Now, let me say we want to add another rectangle, right, on this screen. We want to add another rectangle. So let's insert, or you know what, we can duplicate the same rectangle, right? So let's duplicate it. So we want to duplicate a control. You can either just select it, control copy, control save, right? Or control paste, like control C, control V. Or you come in here and you just copy, right? And then you paste on the screen, right? So that's another way of doing that. Now, let's say you wanted another uh, control, right? Another control on the screen, another rectangle. But this time, I want to do a couple of things on this rectangle. I want to do a couple of things. So, first of all, let's change the color. Like, we just change the color just normally. So, we go to the fill property. So, we look for fill, let's see, fill. Let's just change it to something else so we can recognize the other rectangle. So, let's change something this nice light green, right? Okay, so now we have two rectangles. Now, but we want to do something. We want to make sure that this uh, rectangle here is always to the right of the blue rectangle. Like it's always to the right of it, no matter what, just always to the right of it. So I'm going to write an expression for that, and I'm going to explain what it is. So, because now we've referenced the same control, but now I want to reference another control from another control. So I want to control how a particular control behaves based on what is happening in another control. Okay. So what we're going to do is we want to make this green container, sorry, rectangle, to be always to the right of the blue one and just beside it, exactly beside it, always, no matter where it's right. So how can we do that? Okay. All right. So first things first, I want to work on what we call X and Y. We've talked about that a little bit, right? So when we move a control left around the the canvas, it changes its X and Y. So X is the horizontal axis, y is vertical axis, right? Okay. Now, if you want to make this control to be always to beside the blue one, there are two things we probably need to do, right? One is that we need to position it properly. We need to position it to be always beside it. Now, if you say, for instance, that the Y property of this control currently is at 240. That's because it's a little bit lower. Blue one is at uh, 45, right? These are, you know, 240. So we want to make it to make sure that it's always the same as the blue one, right? And we can do that as well. So we can say rectangle. We are referencing the first rectangle. Now we're currently on rectangle one. You know what? I think I should rename it. Let me rename it. Let's do like this. Let's rename it because I feel easier for us when we rename it. Let's call this light green rectangle. Right. So let's put just put a rectangle there, and we'll call this one. Just give it a minute. Okay. So let's call this one uh, blue rectangle. Right. Let's call it blue rectangle like that. So now the beauty about Power Apps, by the way, so this is very important. Even though we've used the reference name before, right, in a particular formula, right, even if when you change the name of the control, it picks the new name. So let me show you. So now speak like in fact, I can already see it in formula bar. The new name is now blue rect. Before it was rectangle one, we changed to blue rect or blue rectangle. It has picked that name immediately. So that's one nice cool thing about our apps. Okay, so now let's go back to this guy. Okay, again, so it's blue rect, so blue rectangle. So now blue rectangle dot y. So that means we want to say, okay, the y position of or the vertical position um, the blue rectangle should be the same as the green rectangle. So you should track it. So whatever value that the y property of the blue rectangle has is also what the green must have, right? So that's number one. Now we also want to do something else. So let's say
All right, so we're currently having some network issue. Like I said, it rained yesterday in Lagos, and sorry, it rained today in Lagos. So we're currently having some issues. We are just going to go on a short break while we wait for our trainer to come back. All right, so stay tuned and remain glued to your screen.
Okay, yeah.
Welcome back,
Sorry.
everyone.
Apologies.
Let's go
Yeah.
right into it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm back. Okay. So yeah. So now going back to this place now, as I said, we are referencing the Y property of the blue rectangle. So what does this mean? Okay, let's just let me show you how it works. Right. So you can see that the green one comes with it, right? So they're kind of like together in, they move together. So you can already imagine building like a kind of fun game just like this. So you can see and drag it up, it goes up with it. They're always in the same vertical position, right? So now I want to make sure it's always at the side, right? Because if I kind of take it to this angle here, right, it would go up with it, but the distance between them would be wider, right? So I want to make sure that it's always close to it, or by maybe just exactly by the side, actually. So now how can we do that? Okay, so we can go to the X property too, right? Again, we also need to reference the blue rectangle here, right? So what we'll do is that we can say uh, blue rectangle, right? Dot X, so that the X position, right? You can say dot X. Now, at this point, it's literally on top of each other, and that is not necessarily helpful, right? So because now the Y and the X are exactly the same thing, right? The Y and the X are exactly the same thing. Now I can't drag the blue rectangle at this point, but I can change the Y and X position. They will also move around, maybe with the number. But what I want to do, I want to put it to the right of it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add this with the width of that blue rectangle, right? Because I'm saying, okay, start where the blue rectangle ends. So the width basically. So start at the width, right? So blue rectangle dot width. So you can see that we can reference more than one property of another control from another control. So you can see it's not exactly by the side. So if I move the blue rectangle around, move it down, going to come down. If I move it diagonally here, it's going to come down and going to meet it there. So right, because it is watching the change of value in that other control. And this is a very, very powerful concept in Power Apps, right? Right. So there are two ways generally we change values for a particular control. We can use variables, which we saw yesterday. Another thing we can do is to just reference another control, the value of a property of another control that we're interested in, right? So we're going to look at uh, that example. On that example, so now, okay, so let's say we want to uh, let's use all right, get some finance so money. Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of controls on the screen. All right, I'm going to put in uh, text inputs. Okay, another one. All right, okay. Let us put it by this side. Okay, so let me put this. Let me put this uh, let me call this let me say price, right? This so this is price. Just give it a minute. While we do that, I'll copy and paste. So call it volume, right? So it's like we have a product, right? You have a product. So just imagine you have a product, and there's a price and the volume. So the price for unit item or unit price. Let me call it that way. Right? Unit price. Okay. So the next one is volume. So volume sold or volume or amount of of that product that was being sold. So I want to see the total like revenue or something from that particular product. So now we'll add another text. So I think I might make this guys bigger because it's small. Okay. So bigger. Okay, so by the way, if you want to change the size of the text, there's what they call the font size. So just to change it to, change it to maybe 18. Just make it that. Okay, so let's make this one. Again, I mentioned that you can select two controls at the same time and adjust their properties or something like that, as long as those properties are common to each other, right? So I want to make them a bit bigger and the font size to be 18 also. So it's big, right? Okay. Another thing I want to do with this controls is that I want to remove the default. So default basically is the property that determines what is inside of a text input by default, right? So currently there's the word text input, so I want to remove it. Then I also want to change the format of this text input because they are going to be putting in numbers, right? So I'm going to put number, okay? All right, now, so I think we are good like this. Okay, so another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the names of these controls. It's a good practice to change the name of the controls to reflect the controls. So this is, I can call this TXT. So this is best practice text input. We tend to call it, I think TXT. I think, yeah. So that's what we'll do, and then we can now call this unit price. Okay, so that's the name of that control. So we'll select the other control, right? So the volume, we can rename it. Uh, let's call this TXT volume. Okay, all right. So now we've renamed it. Now I'm going to let let's call it. So typically for label, we use LBL, right? If this is just a best practice, you can also limit what you want, but just best practice for naming controls. So can call it label total. I don't know, maybe total revenue, something like that. That's what it is. All right. So I'm going to say a couple of things here, right? Now, what we're going to do is that we want to be able to add the values or actually multiply the values in these two, in the unit price and the volume. Like, so let's say unit price of our product is 10 naira and we sold 1,000 units of it. So therefore our revenue will be 10,000. So that's what we want to do. Okay, so now we can go into this label because this label is like we need to see the result, right? So go to text. Now I'm going to do a couple of things. First of all, again, this is the same thing that we always do. We are going to reference the controls that we need because now we're getting the value from those text inputs. So what are the control names? So txt unit price. Okay, let's just I will come back to that. And txt volume, I believe. Yes, volume. So we'll pick volume. Now, this is not the I mean, we don't have an error, but this is not ideal, right? I'm not even sure to work. Let's try it. Because so let me just test it. So let's say we have 6, and there we have 40. Oh, actually kind of worked. Interesting enough. Okay, so this works, right? But this is not advisable to do that because in certain situations it might give you a problem. So, and I will explain why this is not advisable. Okay, so it actually works like this. Right? It works. It just the unit and it. Now, in certain situations, right, especially when you are dealing with data sources, it might come back to tell you that, oh, it's not it's not seeing an actual value, it's in a control, and you can't use it in that situation, right? But I think because it's a very simple situation, so it's data bus power apps again helps you, right? But let's do it the proper way, right? So the proper way is to not just say, oh, this control that times that other control, is to say what property of that control are you interested in, right? So the property of control you're interested in is the text property of the text input control, right? So do dot text. Come to this other dot text again, right? So now in this scenario, it still works. Actually, it works. So right, it's exactly it's working. So we are getting our our revenue. So now the challenge here is that um, okay, put it there. All right. So normally, right, I think maybe this is an improvement from Power Apps because I think even recently we still had a problem with this, right? But normally, what we do is that in this scenario, we need to convert the text to number, right? But it seems to work fine. Right? But let's just do it, right? So it seems to work fine. You can test it on your own. Let's see what result it gives you. Now, because the output of a text input is always a it's always a text, right? It's always a text. Now, what that means is that you cannot do arithmetic operations with text normally. You cannot do arithmetic operations with text because you can say that the data type is text. So there's that difference between two, or let me put it this way. Yeah. So let's say there's difference between 2 and 2 like this, right? So this one with the quote is the text 2, while the other one is the number 2, right? So it's normally the output of the text input produces the one with the quotes, right? Okay, so that's the best way to think about it. However, it does seem that Power Apps is actually helping us here, which normally it doesn't do that before. So I guess Power Apps has actually improved in this regard. So Power Apps seems to figure out that okay, this text input, since I'm formatting as a number, then that means whatever is going to come out of it is always going to be a number, even though it's a text, but it's going to help me do the conversion automatically. However, you can convert it manually yourself, and that's actually what I want to show you. But since it's still working perfectly fine. So if I wanted to convert this to a number, right, there's a function now. So this is one of the first function I'll introduce to you. It's called value, right? So now how does function work, right? So let me just type function value, then use this, right? Now, so and I'll type the second one, and then I'm going to close it here. Okay, now what's the difference here? If you look at this number, it says 40, but the data type this time is number, not text, right? So this is normally what you do, right? It's number, not a text. So that's what value does. For value converts a text to a number. Of course, it's not all text it can convert. That's where a numeric text. What do I mean by numeric text? The text that has numbers like or digits, right? So like 2, 3, 4, but is in a text. We can convert it to the number version of it. So that's what value does for us. So, but it turns out that actually we will not need it. So probably a new update in Power Apps because normally this would like give you some errors, but it's fine. Okay, so we are good. Now, if we've been able to do a simple calculation using a operator, currently we use the multiplication operator, right? So times two numbers together. Okay, now let's talk about functions a little bit more. right? Now, if you look the normal bracket, you open the bracket and we close it. Now, what is happening inside of the bracket, though? What is happening inside of the bracket? Well, what is inside of a bracket of a function is what we call its parameter, right? So the best way to think about the parameter is the input into the function, right? So let's say think about a function like a small computer, right? And in a computer, I think back then in school we have these three parts of a computer. So the input, processing, and output. So what is inside that parameter is like the input into that function. Then the function does whatever it needs to do, and then the output is this. So those are the three parts of a function, right? So the input is like your parameters, right? And then the processing is what the function is doing exactly. So in this case, the function is helping us to convert to a number. Then so in this case, value produces a number, right? After its conversion. So that's the output of the value function. So when you are working with any function, those are the things you need to keep in mind, right? So now in the case of value it has one parameter, right? It has one parameter. Now, why does value have one parameter? Well, that's because that's the way value works. Technically, right, it can have more than one parameter, right? So it could have other numbers too, help you to convert. But for now, right, it can have one parameter. Okay. Now, Latin, okay. Actually, so it turns out that value function actually can have another parameter called language. Now, the reason why there's a word called language here is in terms of the formatting of the number, right? But you don't need to worry about this. So again, this is important because some functions can have either zero parameters, that means they don't need any parameter at all, or it can have one parameter, or it can have multiple parameters, right? So in the case of value, it actually has two parameters, right? It turns out it has parameters. So you can add a language. Note again that some functions would have a optional parameter. So what does that mean? That means that you can put it or not. So in the case of value, the language was optional. We didn't need to put the language, but we can put it if we want. So sometimes some functions are also optional. Now, we are going to, of course, as we share our resources to you guys, we are going to have a link to the reference guide for Power FX formulas, right? So I'm going to be able to look through the reference guide. But for now, it's just to get the basics. When you're working with a formula, right, you need to know three things. What are the parameters or what are the inputs? What does the function do? And what does it produce back to you, right? So in the case of value, it produces a number. Now let's do some other things. Now, if this function produces a number, but in truth we want to, right, we want to let it look like a actual naira, like 80 naira or 900 naira or something like that. So let's all look at another function that I'll be talking about. So another function is called text. Now text is like the opposite of value. Text takes what is a number and convert it into a text. In fact, text takes anything as long as it can convert it back into a text data type, right? So now, because we want to format it as a currency, like it has the naira symbol, dot, and all those kind of special things, it has to be a text, right? Because text can do that formatting properly, right? So now I want to introduce the text function. Now, what does the text function take into? Now, let me look at it. I'm going to put my mouse here. If you look at it, I'm going to put my mouse here. It's going to give us like a hint at the top, right? You can see that it's telling us text value. So any value, put any value here, it will work. So now, what value do we put here? Well, we put the number 80. Remember that value times the other value, right, is producing number times a number, which is 80 currently. So it's actually the 80 is actually a number, is a figure, the data type. The data type is number, but the text is taking it back to a text again, right? Right. So because okay, let me select this. This something that's selected now is the first parameter into value. Now, I understand that it's actually long because it's like you are multiplying two things, but it's actually producing one value, right? So we have a function multiply with another function. All that operation is an expression, is a formula in itself, and it's producing just one value, which is 80. So that's the first parameter into text, right? Now, if you want to add a new parameter into a function, use comma. right? So comma will allow you to add another parameter. Now, so what's the next parameter? And I want to format this text. Now, the format text is going to be a text itself. Like, how do you want to format it? So this is how it works. I'm going to put this. I'm going to put let's just put actually. Yeah. Okay, so we'll put let me see how that looks like. So we can format it this way, right? So now what does this mean? So what there are different type of format. Don't worry, you can learn about that. So any number that I see, make sure that I put extra zero, like two decimal places behind that, which is the way we normally write currencies or money, right? So that's what this formatting means, right? So that anything I will see, put the two zero before, but it's not enough, right? We need to put the currency symbol, what we call the window emojis, right? So there's a window emoji. If you don't know dots, so window key and dots will bring out the window emoji. I think yes. Okay, it's brought it out finally. All right, so you can go to the symbol part of it on your system, and you see Naira, right? So you can search for it, but currently I have it as a recent symbol. So you can just go through it. Now you can see that I've formatted it as a currency, like 80 Naira, right? So how we combine, just look at that expression. We've actually used two functions. One of those functions we used it twice. We also used an operator, multiplication operator, and so you can see how it is. So a formula which is or what we call an expression can be as simple or as complex as it needs to be. But just keep in mind three important things. Number one, you might need to reference a control, right? Again, reference a control means that as the value of that control changes or the property of that control changes, your formula is getting updated, right? The formula is what? Is getting updated. That's number one. Number two, you can add functions in your formula. I need to understand the basis of the function. What is the function doing? Understand what the function is doing. Understand the parameters that the function expects. Remember that those parameters are also depending on the data type, right? So some function might expect a number as a parameter. Some function might expect a number as the first parameter and a text as the second parameter, right? So you need to understand that too. Then you need to understand what data type, what value, what kind of value is that function producing for us. So in the case of text, it's producing a text. If you look at my mouse, because my cursor is at the end of the text formula, look at the output. It's called data type text. So those are the hints that you need to be watching out for, right? What is this my function producing back to me? Isn't it? All right. Okay. Now I'm going to do something else. All right. So let's say we want to indicate that our volume, we're hitting a good volume, we're hitting a not so good volume because it's not that great, right? So we want to do something. We want to say that the color, right? The color of this text should be red if you are below a certain value. So I'm going to go to the color property. Okay, so I'm going to go to color property. I'm going to do something. That's okay. Now we have our um, revenue, right? If it's below 100 naira, right, it should be red. That means we're not doing well. And then, but if it's above 100 naira, green, we're doing great, right? So that's what we want to do, right? Okay. So currently the color is black. I made a comment yesterday on the charts, right? On the charts yesterday, talking about the RGBA function. Again, this is a function. In fact, this is a good example of a function. Now, as a color, you don't need to worry about colors. To be honest, like you can, like what Lola showed, you can go online, grab colors, put it here, and stuff like that. However, it can be a good learning experience to know what is even going on in RGBA, right? So RGBA is just a function with four parameters. The first parameter is the red value. So if you did fine arts in circles of fine art or something like that, where we should mix colors, right? Which one we'll call the primary colors. So we call them, if I can remember very well, I think it's red, green, yellow, or no, red, blue, yellow. Actually, red, blue, yellow. So it's, yeah, I think it's red, blue, yellow. But in computers or computer science, it's red, blue, green, right? Okay, so that's the difference here, right? So now that green is just so it's just a way of mixing the colors together, to be honest, right? So for instance, if you mix red and blue, I think you get purple, right? You get purple and stuff like that. Just that's just what it is. Now the one at the end is what I think I described it as the alpha channel or alpha value. So alpha value just means the level of transparency. So if you look at yesterday when Ola was doing the example, 0.5 was half of the like so okay one means is the color is fully opaque, right? Zero means it's fully transparent. So transparent means that you can see through it. Opaque is that you can't see anything behind it, right? So if you make it 0.5, you can see some things behind it. So let me give you an example of that on this place here. Just quickly talk about it. So it's just a function, right? So it's just the last part. So the last part now is the alpha. So say, okay, I want it to be transparent, right? So you can say, okay, let it to be 0.5. 0.5 is halfway between 0 and 1. So you can see it's a bit transparent. Now, you don't have anything behind it. But let's say we put something behind it, like let's take this. So if we reorder this, let's let's just add a label. It doesn't matter what it is. So label, and then I put it on top of this guy. Currently, it's on top of the blue, but if I send it to the back, so I send it to the back, or I send the blue to the front, any of the two, right? I could send this onto the back, I send it to the front. So I'll send this to the back, so to be behind it, and you can see that once I send it back, you can still see the text, isn't it? Because the alpha channel is half, right? So that's just it. So if I make it full one, not text anymore, right? So it's gone. So that's just what it is. Okay, so that was just a side note. Again, it's just a formula, right? It's a formula for colors. All right, so now let's write our function. Right now, so let's use condition. Now we did a bit of conditions the other day when we were trying to show our device type drop down based on if you selected device type, isn't it, from the request? So we did a bit of that. So we're going to do that again. All right. So if um, now now I'm going to that. So now we can reference some. So I'm going to take it up a bit, right? When we were working on on the rectangle or the square, now it's actually a square at this point. The good thing is that a square is actually a rectangle, actually, right? So when we're working on the rectangles, right, we did something. We referenced the width of the rectangle in the height property of that rectangle. I will use the name of the rectangle. Use rectangle one at that time. The name was rectangle one at that time. Now it's called blue rect, right? Now we could do the same here. We could reference because I want to reference the text of this control. Remember, I'm selecting label total revenue, right? I want to reference the text. Now, instead of writing the name, there's what we call how do I put it now? We can have references, reference values, right? So if you want to self, so self means reference myself, reference the control, reference me again. So I say self dot let's call it dot text right now. So self dot text, I can also convert this back into um, hmm. So we've kind of formatted it. So I'm not sure if it will convert back to a number, but let me try. Right. So let's try this. So value. So now I want to convert it back to a number because I want to compare. Now we're doing greater than or less than. So it has to be a number, right? So let's say value. This other text is less than 100, right? Then it should be red. Now, the way I'm going to write the red, I'm not going to go to write red. I'm going to write color dot red, right? I'm going to write color dot red. Now, the reason I'm writing color dot red because there's what we call enumeration, and don't worry, it's not a big grammar. Basically, it's just like there are some things that though they have like some options, very limited options, and you cannot do more than that, right? So color is one of them. So if you do color dot, you see a list of all the colors that are available in Power Apps, right? That has a name. because there are actually more colors than there's name, right? But the ones that have a name, you will see them there. So a good example of that also is a transition. Remember the transition, the way we did the fade. I don't know if I think Lola showed that. We said screen transition dot fade, or so I can just say fade. That's another example where there are just about 3 or 4 different type of screen transitions. So you have cover right, fade, and things like that. So those are an example of that. So that's color the red. Now, so color the red, comma, then what that means is that if it's less than 100, color the red, right? So that's the true part of the if statement. So now I want to do the false part of the if statement. So if it's not less than 100, what happens, right? So now color dot green, right? So color dot green. Okay, so now we'll now cover it, right? Now, there's a bit of concern because I think because of the fact, right, that this text is, let me see, hold on just a minute. I think it's still picking up the formula. Just a minute, let me check that. Okay, it's still picking up. Okay, yeah. So I can't convert that number. I suspected so I formatted it with the currency stuff, right? So what I'm going to do, right, is that I won't use the self.text anymore. So instead, I can use the same formula that's on the text, right? I can use the same thing. Right? So I can just copy this part because already by formatting with the currency and things like that, the currency symbol, I've kind of taken it away from a number. Now it's now a cover text. I can't convert it back. Remember, I said that for you to convert a text back to a number, it has to be just digits, right? Now because I have that currency symbol, I can't do that anymore. So I can just copy this. No, it's not a problem. I can come here, right? So unfortunately that's not possible. So I just paste this here. Again, it's the same thing, right? It's the same calculation. So if it is, uh, so now it's red, right? So it is red. You can see it's red because of the fact that it's less than 100, right? So let's now do something that is, hold on, I'm not going to do semi-bold, so it's a little bit bigger and you can see it. Now let's play it a bit. So let's see. So let's say we add unit price. Let's say unit price is actually 100. So you can see it's 400 now. It's green. It's because it's more than 100, right? So this is a condition now. You can see, and the way condition works is also a condition is actually just a formula, right? So it's again. Let's say okay. So we have unit price of 10, or let's say we sold just for 40 red, right? So let's say we sold 9 90 red. So we only get green if we can sell 10. So that one green 10 and above, right? So right now let's now look at the if formula once again. So this will be the last thing and then we'll conclude. Maybe so let's just look at it again. So what did we do? Properties, right? Now the first it has 3 parameters rather. Please. All right. So the first parameter is this size. I'm going to select the first parameter because it might look it might not look like a parameter. So you can see what I've selected now is the first parameter. That is the value that actually the logical test that if needs to do. So there's a logical test that needs to happen, a kind of condition that needs to happen. So we're going to use the logical operators. So what logical operator do we use here now? We use the less than operator. So we have the less than operator, which is like left elbow, if you remember in mathematics, and then we have the greater than operator, which is the right elbow, I suppose. And then we have the not equals to. The not equals to is this. Let me show you the not equals to. Just briefly, I know it's in the material sense, but let me just show you. So this is not equals to, right? So not equals to is we combine the less than and the greater than together. So that's the not equals to, right? So that's the way that works. So we have the less than, we have the less than, the greater than, the not equals to, and the equals to. So the equals to is a very straightforward one. That's just the equality sign, which is there. So that's the logical operators that needs to happen there. So they need to do a condition, do a logic check, right? So when we do the logic check, the second parameter is what happens when it is true. What value do you want to produce when it is true? Now, the thing about if statement is that it can produce any value. Any value can produce any data type. What I mean by it can produce color type, it can produce text type, it can produce number type, but it depends on what you want to do. In this situation, I'm trying to do a color. So I'm producing, so this is my if function will produce a color type. Right, very important. So this is the value I want to produce when it is true, right? So when is my condition is true. Let me do less than again, right? So I want to produce red when it is true, right? And then the third parameter is I want to produce green when it is false. So that means when that value is not less than 100, then let the color be green. So that's just the basic thing about conditions. So I think we'll stop here for now. Yeah. So that's it. So just please, if you have any questions, again, you can drop it in the chat or in the WhatsApp group chat. So thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. So
Awesome
yeah,
class, David.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you
So
so
if
much
if
for teaching us.
if you are doing this in your studio right now, please just say hi in the comments. Just let us know what you are doing. What have you been doing? What have you been practicing? Have you done any if conditions? Have you done any kind of calculations between two text input? Please let us know in the comments. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, David, for such an amazing class. So I just dropped in the chat
Okay,
section and I'm
okay.
asking if you are replicating this, say hi. If you're replicating this, say hi. If you're doing this at all, let me know if you are doing this with us, guys. Also, if you have replicated any of the classes, let us know. If you have any challenges at all, let us know. We will be taking questions. Today is day 5. Day 6 is going to be more amazing. Day 7 is going to be more amazing. Day 8 is going to be more amazing. But before we go, there's something I want to tell you. In one of these days that are remaining, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, we'll be building an app from scratch. We will not be explaining. We're just going to use all the things that we've taught day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. We're going to build an app from the beginning till the end. Don't miss any of the days that have that are remaining. I'm not going to tell you the day we are going to build an app, but we will build an app from beginning till the end. We are going to do pop-ups, we are going to do search function, we are going to do filters, we are going to implement all these things, all this conditional formatting that David has taught us today. Will be implementing that. So don't forget to tell a friend, and of course to be present and replicate all that we have done. Expect to see today's resource in your mail by 9 p.m., right? David, 9 p.m. today?
9 a.m. 9 a.m. Well, we could make it today, but typically it's 9 a.m. in the morning. That's when the mails go out. Yeah.
Okay, okay, awesome. So either you get it 9 p.m. today or
Yeah.
you get it 9 a.m. tomorrow. You're going to get the resources. So stay tuned and we're going to see you again tomorrow. And it's a bye from us. Bye.
Bye.